Alright, hello everybody and welcome back to day 5 of the Writers Workshop. I accidentally just skipped forward a few slides, but hopefully you guys didn't see much. So today we will be talking about editing and ending. It feels crazy that it's already been 5 days. It honestly feels just like the second day, so hopefully you guys have been enjoying the class so far. But anyway, so today's the last day of the Writers Workshop, and just a recap of basically everything that we did up to this point. The first day on Sunday, we kind of just talked about plot hills. We talked about how to find inspiration and how to basically get into creative writing. On Tuesday, we talked, or on Monday, technically day 2, we talked about literary devices. We learned about writing techniques, how to use imagery, and all of that fun stuff. On day 3, which was Tuesday, everything's kind of shifted forward a day. We talked, we didn't really talk, but we did a animated slideshow of The Lion King just to help you guys visualize everything. Yesterday, I believe, was day 4. Yeah, time really flies. And we basically talked about how to begin a short story or a novel, and we did a lot of fun imagery practice. So it looks like you guys enjoyed that. So if you guys have actually wrote that story about spilling toilet water on Santa Claus, definitely let me know. I would love to hear it. But anyways, and today we will be talking about editing, which is kind of the thing that you do right before ending a novel. And then we're going to briefly talk about how to end a short story or a novel. Chances are you guys aren't there yet. If you are, that's pretty impressive. You just wrote a story in 5 days. But because this class is supposed to be an overview, I'm just going to brush up on it. Alright, so kind of what I just talked about, here is our agenda for today. First, we're going to learn about editing and how I personally edit my own writing and other people's writing as well. Of course, editing methods differ from person to person, but this is just a general guide that you can kind of go off of. Next, we're going to go through class examples and an editing activity, which is basically the same thing. So actually, I was looking through all of you guys' homework when you wrote the first chapter or first few paragraphs of your short story or novel, and I actually took those and kind of put it into the slideshow so that we can edit it together as a class. All names are not shown, so everything's anonymous, so nobody knows who wrote what. But if you want to actually unmute and tell everyone that you wrote it, you can definitely do that. If you don't see yours on here, it's mostly because one, you either didn't share your document with me or your folder with me, or two, you kind of just edited it right before the class. And I think I put this PowerPoint together a few hours ago, so it may have not made it on here. But either way, I'll be going through your writing and giving you feedback right after this. And Olivia, do you have a question?
I think I did it, but I think I forgot to share it with you.
Yeah, it's fine. I know a lot of people tend to forget. So that means your story probably, you won't see yours on today's slideshow because I didn't see it. But after this whole class and after it ends, I'll go through each of you guys' writing and give you individual feedback, if that makes sense. So anyways, after that, we will talk about how to end a short story, which is kind of what I just talked about. And then we're going to talk about how to turn a short story into a novel. So this is actually a question that I get a lot because, writers tend to start pretty easy with short stories, but then they don't want to come up with another novel idea because they love this idea that they use for this short story. So they always wonder, how do I turn this into a novel? So when we talk about that, I'll give you some tips on if you just don't want to come up with another idea and you want to take a short story and kind of lengthen it and turn it into a whole novel. At the end, we will potentially do a Kahoot. I had planned one, but depending on how long everything else takes, we definitely don't want to go for so long after class because I'm sure you guys have other things to do. And so that's optional depending on what time we get to that. And I got a few questions yesterday about what do I do next, after I take this class. Do I write? Is there something else I have to do? So I also got a few questions about any future classes I may be hosting. So I'll cover all of that stuff once we get to the end. But going right into our first activity or thing that we're going to do today is editing. So I don't know why that's there, but anyways. So like I mentioned before, I'm going to give you guys a general guide to kind of follow when you're editing your own writing. So when I edit, I look at a lot of things, but obviously I can't list them all down. So I came up with the top 5 or 6 things that I kind of look for when I'm going through everybody's work. And these are the 6. So the first one is boring words. So these are words like they said, they walked, they smiled, or just they're happy, they're nice. So just general boring words that you could replace with some more advanced vocabulary. The second one is point of view issues and tense issues that kind of go hand in hand. So you definitely want consistency. If you see something that's non-consistent, you definitely want to change that. Next one is repetitive sentences. So this one is actually pretty hard to identify because at least for me, when I'm writing, I don't know if I'm being repetitive or not. So that's why when I edit, I actually read my work out loud, which is really awkward, but it does definitely help me catch the repetitive things. And you'll see, I mean, we're going to go through all of these examples, but I'm sure we'll come across some repetitive words that are used a lot. So the next one is or are run-on sentences and punctuation errors. You guys should probably know what this is by now. And then the last one is or are confusing scenes and or plot holes. So I actually added this one on to the end of today's lesson because in the past I didn't talk about that. But technically, I guess this is more advanced, but there's two types of main editing. The first one's grammar issues, so kind of just the top 5. And then the next one is content, which is plot holes and confusing scenes. But I don't want to get too deep into editing because there's a whole like land of editing out there. So I just decided to add this on to the end so you guys can kind of add that to your guide. So I think the next one, all right, here we go. So basically how this is going to work is kind of self-explanatory. So as I mentioned, I went through all you guys' work. I took the first paragraph. Yep, it's the first paragraph of everybody's chapters or whatever books or stories, and I put them into here. So we're basically going to go through sentence by sentence and kind of edit as a class so you guys get a feel of how you can edit for your own writing. So this is the first example. I'll just read it through one more time, or one time. So boom, the door frame shook as Charlie Orwell slammed the door open. Charlie just got punched in the face by the school bully. He also got loads of homework from his teacher. He hated school, but at least it was summer break and he got to visit the beach instead of going to school. Charlie stomped into the kitchen where his mom was making a snack for him. All right, does anyone have initial impressions? Like, is there anything that you think we should change? Yep, Stella, you raised your hand.
That was an accident.
Oh, okay.
I have something.
Yeah, sure.
It says, boom, the door frame shook as Charlie Orwell slammed the door open. If you slam the door open, it's not going to make a boo. It's only if you slam the door closed. So you should just get rid of the door shook and then just like, you just opened the door.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's true. If you actually visualizing the scene, if you, I guess, like slam the door open, I guess it may crash against the other like door or wall that's crashing into. Yeah, I guess that could be a potential way. Or yeah, I guess we could just clarify this and say, okay, this is another thing I saw. So remember what we covered yesterday, dialogue, external dialogue is always presented in 2 quotes, but I don't think anybody's saying boom. So what I'm going to do, that's onomatopoeia, so I'm actually going to put it in italics, which I also kind of mentioned that was for internal dialogue, but it can also be used for sound effects. So I'll just put it there. The door frame shook as, I'll just say, slam the door closed. That makes more sense technically. All right, does anybody else have anything to say about the first sentence or first 2 sentences at least?
So like the second sentence, it says it's about like a scene in school, but then on the second sentence, it says it was summer break, so it was kind of confusing.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we have Charlie just got punched in the face by the school bully, and he also is getting homework. And then yeah, it says that at least it was summer break, so it may be kind of confusing. So yeah, I'm not gonna call the writer out obviously because it's all anonymous. But I would say if I'm reading it, I would guess that this would be the last day of school, and then he's just getting home, and then he gets homework, which is unfortunate on the last day of school. But then he is technically on summer break. So I guess how I would revise it, I would say, but now at least it was summer break and he got to visit the beach instead of going to school every day. I just added that. So, well, not the clearest clarification by me either, but hopefully I can like clarify that a little bit, and so it kind of makes more sense now. All right, does anyone else have any comments?
If it's the last day of school, then if you already got to visit the beach, then wouldn't it be the middle of summer break?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, that was a great catch. It's also kind of a tense error, so I'll go ahead and fix that. So you can say, yeah, he hated school, but now at least it was summer break. And I'll just say, instead of going to school every day, he could visit the beach. So I guess we just took we reconstructed that sentence, so now it makes a bit more sense. All right, does anybody else have any comments about this one? All right, so I guess no one else has any comments. I mean, I'm not checking out. I'll open the chat real quick. All right, yeah, there's going to be some work. All right, cool. So I think for me, the main thing that I noticed when I'm reading it, I mean, we fixed most of the errors already, but the second sentence here, it says Charlie just got punched in the face by the school bully. He also got loads of homework from his teacher. It's kind of a, well, I won't say like, it's kind of weirdly structured in the sentence. So I'm not sure if you guys kind of realized it just by reading through it, but for me, I've read like so many things, so I guess the sentence structure is a bit weird. So I'll just restructure it and say Charlie just got punched in the face by the school bully. In addition to, his teacher assigning loads of homework. All right, so we have now Charlie just got punched in the face by the school bully in addition to his teacher assigning loads of homework. And I guess I'll clarify this a bit too. So internal dialogue, worst day of school ever. Okay, there we go. So I guess that kind of clarifies it a little bit. I guess another thing that I would potentially notice or note is that Charlie just got punched in the face by the school bully. So this is kind of an instance where you could definitely use imagery, like showing and not telling. Like in this case, you're kind of, or whoever the writer is, you're kind of telling the audience that Charlie just got punched in the face. But instead of doing that, maybe you can try showing it. So let's say if you get punched in the face, unfortunately, if you ever get punched in the face, you would most likely have a black eye. You would probably be bleeding somewhat, unless the bully is really weak. And you probably have like a bunch of bruises and like all of that stuff. So instead of just saying Charlie just got punched in the face, you could describe it like, let's say Charlie or else on the door closed, his face was puffy and red, and his eye, or he had a black eye or something like that, to kind of show people that he got punched instead of just telling them that he got punched. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay, does anybody else have any last comments before we move on to the second example?
No.
Okay, nope. All right, let me check the chat real quick because I tend to miss things that go in the chat. All right, seems like nobody has any more comments, which is great. All right, so obviously, like when you're editing, it's not going to be perfect either. I think you probably should get like 5 or more drafts before you can actually say this is perfect, and of course it's subjective and all that stuff. But I think this one is pretty good. We definitely fixed a lot of things. It makes a lot more sense now. So just gonna go on to the second example. All right, here we go. Example 2, it was a sunny day. Jackson was waiting for his best friend Grayson, who was coming to his house for a sleepover, and he could not wait. Years passed, Jackson grew old. Then the doorbell rang. Great, it was Grayson. All right, initial impressions on this one. Is there anything like straight up that you kind of know and want to change?
It wouldn't take Grayson that long to get to his house.
Yeah, so yeah, definitely the time. Does anyone else have any comments?
I feel like it's kind of like instant. Like I don't mean by like the years past Jackson grew old, like that makes sense, but then like immediately the doorbell rings. Like maybe it's like he was like drinking coffee and then the doorbell rang.
Yeah, all right, that's a great thing too. So again, like more, I guess, description instead of just listing it out. Then the doorbell rang. It was Grayson. Yeah, does anyone else have any comments?
I think I remember you saying this in like one of the classes, but you said not to start with weather.
Yeah, that too. That's a great catch. Yeah, I think, yeah, I mentioned it yesterday. Try not to start with weather. Honestly, if you could just take this part out, you can say Jackson was waiting for his best friend, oh my gosh, Jackson was waiting for his best friend, Grayson, who's coming to his house, and blah, blah, blah. So obviously, like right here, it kind of sounds kind of abrupt, which kind of makes sense why the writer would want to include some like before, like showing and not telling and all that stuff before actually getting into the story. But kind of what Olivia also mentioned, maybe you could just include some actions and make it like not, boring and describing the weather, because I don't think this fact that it's a sunny day is relevant to the story. If it is, then that's like a whole other like story. But for here, when I try to like make it not sound that abrupt, I'd probably say something like Jackson bounced up and down on his toes as he waited for his best friend Grayson to arrive. I'll just say their parents had finally agreed to the long anticipated sleepover. Now Grayson would be arriving in just a few minutes. All right, so basically I took that first sentence or two sentences and I kind of expanded it. I added some imagery. If you guys remember what we did on Tuesday with imagery, one of our prompts was he was excited, which honestly I just kind of like copied and pasted the whole bouncing up and down on his toes thing. You can like definitely do that. So we have Jackson bounce up and down on his toes as he waited for his best friend Grayson to arrive. Their parents had finally agreed to the long anticipated sleepover. Now he would be arriving in just a few minutes. All right, so that one probably makes a bit more sense. We took out the weather because weather is generally pretty boring. And then we kind of added some more imagery. So we now know that Jackson's pretty excited just by the way he's acting. All right, so I'm just gonna press start a new paragraph here. The years passed, Jackson grew old. Then the doorbell rang. It was Grayson. All right, I'm pretty sure someone mentioned this, but any comments on these two lines?
The years pass part doesn't make much sense.
Yeah, when I was reading it through, I was a bit confused there too. I guess there's kind of two scenarios that could technically be happening here. So I guess scenario one would be like years actually passed, like maybe Grayson never showed up. That would kind of be sad. I mean, you just kind of got like stood up by your best friend. But anyway, so that would be scenario one. And scenario two would, I guess, be years didn't actually pass. It was just kind of illusion because, you know, when you're waiting for something, time seems to go really slow. Because just, you know, then the doorbell rang. So if the writer, well, I'm not going to call anyone out again, but I don't know. I guess I'll just go with scenario two with the years not actually passing. So I'll just kind of take that out and say minutes passed, followed by hours. Jackson glanced outside to see the setting sun. More internal dialogue, you could say, where is Grayson? Is he not coming? Not coming. All right, so of course you could add so much more there, but I don't want to take too much time on this one. So I'm just like going to put these four sentences. So again, scenario two, if it is actually scenario one and years actually pass, definitely like don't reference this one at all. Okay, next sentence, then the doorbell rang. It was Grayson.
That actually wouldn't go along with the rest of the story because if the sun was setting, it could not be it because after in the story, it's not like nighttime.
All right, it's not nighttime. All right, so that's kind of a potential plot hole. So maybe, I don't know, we could say Jackson glanced outside to see the sun. I don't know, I guess maybe if Grayson would be arriving in the morning, you could say to see, or I'll just say Jackson glanced at the clock only to realize it was noon. So I'm not sure when the rest of the story takes place, but you can just like change that based on what the story actually is going to be about. Yeah, maybe he waited for a long time. Yeah, definitely. All right, so example two, I would say it's pretty much good now. Again, if the writer wants to kind of clarify more or kind of edit it himself or herself, that's like totally fine too. But I'm just going to go on to example three. Here we go. All right, so this example was actually from a student from the first or second time I taught this class. And this story he was working on in this class, I'm pretty sure he came up with another story that he wrote in another class. But anyway, so I decided to use his example because I'm pretty sure some of you guys didn't forgot to share your story with me. So I wanted to have, I think I have 5 examples. Yep, so I just took his, so we can just go to that.
It should be one day a spider.
All right, we already have a comments. Great. All right, so I guess, yeah, I'll just speed read it through. All right, one day the spider went on a boat because he wants to be a pirate. He started his trip of pirate. At first, he didn't even know how to sail the boat, so he started practicing on the ocean. He learned how to Okay, he learned how to clue up and how to draw the paddle and also how to sail. But after many days of practicing how to sail the ship, he still can't sail the boat. So he went back home and called his friend B. They are good friends, and B knew how to sail the boat. All right, so I think people already kind of mentioned some words can be changed. Does anyone else have any like overall comments on this one?
If it's a spider, wouldn't it be up in a corner of a room making a web?
Yeah, great comments. So I think what is happening in this story, it's like that type of fantasy. I actually forgot what the name is called. It's like a
Personification.
Yeah, the personification is like literary device, but technically this would be its own genre. The same as Utopia, when you kind of take animals and treat them as humans. So in this case, this spider is, a spider, but it's not the typical spider that we see from our perspective. So from the spider's point of view, he is a human, if that makes sense. So it's like
I have another comment.
Yeah, go
It
ahead.
says he still can't sail the boat. It should be he still couldn't.
Yep, that's a great grammar catch. So I'll go ahead and change that. He still couldn't sail the boat. All right. Does anyone else have any comments on this one?
Like at the third sentence, at first he didn't even know, like even isn't really needed.
All right. So we have unnecessary words. You can go ahead and take that out. Anything else?
It didn't say why he wanted to sail a boat.
Yeah, he didn't say why he wanted to sail the boat. So I guess this is kind of optional. It's not like a huge like grammar mistake that could be changed. But I guess the only like reason or why he wants to sail the boat is like right here, and it says because he wants to be a pirate. So I guess that's the only reason why. Of course, the writer will obviously he's not here right now, but he could probably go back and clarify some more. But it's not something that like has to be there, although it technically would be nice. All right. Any other comments?
When he said he started his trip of pirate, like I don't really think that makes sense. Maybe he could say like he started his trip of wanting to be a pirate or something like that.
Yep, that's a great one as well. I was reading through it and I was like, wait, this does not make sense at all. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take that out and replace it with kind of the sentence that you suggested. One day the spider went on the boat because he wants to be a pirate. You know what? I don't even think that sentence is necessary. If you were to add one, you could say something just like, then he started his first day of attempting to be a pirate, or he started his journey of becoming a pirate, or etc. All right. Any other comments? You guys have a lot of comments on this one.
I think it's the third sentence. It's kind of a run-on sentence, and also like it says he learned how to clear up and how to draw the paddle and how to sail, but you could just replace the two with commas.
All right, so that's a run-on sentence as well. It kind of goes here and all the way to here, so it's very long. You can definitely break it up. And also something that I also saw in this sentence, and also how to sail, but after many days, he still couldn't sail the boat. So that may be kind of confusing because it states he learned how to sail, but then he still couldn't sail the boat. So at least to me, that's a bit confusing. So I'm just going to take this out. He learned how to glue up and how to draw the paddle, but after many days of practice, he still couldn't sail. Okay, so I'm going to add a period there, so hopefully that resolves the whole run-on sentence issue. And then when I continue the sentence, it would just be, he went back home and called his friend B. They are good friends, and B knew how to sail the boat. All right, does anyone else have any comments on any of these sentences?
Nope.
All right, so one thing that I actually see in this one are tense errors. So these are pretty hard to catch, especially if like you're not used to like reading a lot of like papers or books that have tense errors. But we can see one day the spider went on a boat because he wants to be a pirate. So this one is talking in present tense because he wants to be a pirate. But then in this sentence, you can see he learned. So we can see the ED. So that would be in past tense. So if we were to change it to present tense, it would be he learns how to glue up and how to blah, blah, blah. So I actually don't know what tense this story is supposed to be in. but I believe most of it is written in past tense, so I'm just going to change it all to past tense. So wants should be turned into wanted. One day the spider went on a boat because he wanted to be a pirate. At first, he didn't know how to sail, so he started practicing on the ocean. That's fine. He learned how to do all these things. After many days, he still couldn't sail. He went back home and called his friend B. All right, so there's one more tense error in the last sentence. Can anyone find this one?
They were good friends.
Yep, that's great. So instead of are, it would be were. They were good friends, and B knew how to sail the boat. All right, so obviously it's still pretty much like not perfect. I mean, a piece of writing can basically never be perfect because it's impossible. But I would say we made tremendous improvements. I know you guys pointed out a lot of errors on this one, but we fixed them, so it should be all good now. So I'm just gonna move on to the second to last one. All right, example 4. Here we go. The light from the bottle shined so brightly that it blinded my eyes. I was. Caitlin Walker must have saw it because she sighed and said, "When are you going to stop trying to open portals?" "When I actually open one," I answered. "I think it worked." "Great. Now I have a portal. What do we do now?" she responds. "Go in it," I say. "You don't even know where it leads to. You're seriously going to go?" "Yes." "Fine. Then I'm going with you." All right, so this one, of course, is mostly dialogue, as you can probably just tell from the formatting. But in general, does anyone have any comments on this piece of writing?
It said the light from the bottle shines so brightly. So they're making a portal with a bottle? Or
I am not too sure because I didn't continue reading on. But in terms of like content, since that would be technically content, I would assume yes, somehow. People are making portals out of bottles. That would be super cool. Like,
It says the light from the bottle shines so brightly, but the bottle doesn't have any light. Isn't it supposed to be the sun shining on the bottle and it's bright?
Or maybe it's just like probably magic because like portals like, you know, like not.
Wait, does it mean that there's light shining from a bottle and then it beams like a rainbow and then at the end of the rainbow there's a portal?
yeah, who knows? I mean, these are all like interesting suggestions. For me, I'm not gonna like go with like a singular one since I'm not too sure like what the actual story is implying. So I'm just gonna, well, I don't know how we were there one time. Okay, so I guess those are mainly be the content issues, like how is a bottle turning into a portal, or is a bottle even like supposed to be a portal, or like all of that issue, or issues. So let's see. I'm actually not gonna change anything because I don't want to like get the wrong idea and change like a bottle into a portal or a portal into a bottle. So I guess for now we can just assume that the bottle is turning into a portal, or is the key to open a portal.
Also over here, so it said, so the light from the bottle like shined so brightly it blinded my eyes. I winced. Kaylin Walker must have saw because she sighed and said. So if she must have saw, then she must have like walked over and saw. Because if she was right beside her, then she would have like already seen it.
Yeah.
So maybe she could say like Kaylin Walker walked like must have saw because she walked over and said.
I think Kaylin Walker, I think Walker is her last name.
All right. Wow, you guys.
Yeah, we already know that.
Wow,
we already know that Walker's her last name. She's saying that if she was right next to her, then you would have saw the portal in the first place. But if she was farther away, she wouldn't have. Well, like maybe she would have saw.
Wow, you guys are like mini detectives. Like, I don't think
Actually, I'm getting confused.
Yeah,
Forget
I
I
don't
said
think my classes
anything.
has like thought about it like this in depth before. All right, so but that's a great point. So I'll say, okay, so you know what? I'm just gonna go sentence by sentence because I think we're all getting confused. So I guess the first one I see with this first sentence, it's great opener. I would just change shined to shone because whoops. Why is the formatting so weird? I don't know. All right, so I'm just gonna change shine to shown just because that is kind of passive voice and we want to stay away from passive voice. The light from the bottle shone so brightly that it blinded my eyes. So I'm gonna assume that this is a hyperbole because if she's blind, then Okay, I'm not even gonna go there. But yeah, hyperbole. So the next one, I winced or winced. Caitlin Walker must have saw because she sighed and said, alright, so kind of what you guys were saying. I guess I'm not just gonna like make assumptions and say where exactly she's standing, and I'm just gonna be pretty general and just add a few description words and just say, you know what, I'm just gonna take this out, blinded my eyes. So I'm gonna assume that Caitlin is her friend. So I'm just gonna say my friend, Caitlin Walker, sighed for the millionth time since I'd persuaded her to come with me. Upon him at the brightness. Alright, so that's how I changed it. So obviously I did not kind of clarify that question of like where exactly she's standing, but I did like add in some more details. So hopefully it won't be like as confusing as to like where she's actually standing and what she can actually see from where she's standing. So, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna go into the dialogue since I think the first few sentences should be pretty good. All right, so when are you going to try to open portals when I actually open one? Answer, I think it worked. Great, now we have a portal. What do we do now? Go in it. You don't even know where it leads to. You're seriously going to go? Yes, fine, then I'm going with you. All right, so just about these pieces of dialogue, does anybody have any comments on them?
Why does she want to go with her? I mean, like, is she worried or what?
All right, that's a great comment. Actually, when I was writing Nightingale, that was something I had to consider too, of like why. Okay, I'm not gonna like say anything about that because I'm sure people here haven't read it yet. But anyways, so you know, always ask why. There should be a reason why characters do something. That's kind of what I been covering this entire course. So I'm just gonna, well, I'm not gonna write the next few scenes, but I'll just make a note and say why. So obviously, like, it probably is kind of dangerous just jumping through a portal. I mean, if I saw a portal, I probably wouldn't jump through it as a first initial thought. So I'm just going to put why. So Caitlin Walker should probably have a good-ish reason of why she actually wants to join the main character in going through this dangerous portal. All right, so actually, I'm just going to go from the first line of dialogue again. So the first two lines, I guess up to here, are pretty good. Like, they're pretty clear of who's saying what. It's formatted really well, so kudos to whoever wrote this. I think the one thing I would change is here. So we say, when I actually open one, I answer, I think it worked. So I would say if you're this main character and you are trying to open up a portal and apparently like this is the first one that actually works, you would probably have some kind of reaction, or at least you would like be surprised or happy or even like really shocked that it actually worked. So I'm not going to write the actual thing because we've been spending so much time on this. So I'm just going to say add more detail here. And then she could just go ahead and say, wow, I think it worked. All right. And then Caitlin responds by saying, great, now we have a portal. What do we do now? She responds, and this is supposed to be a lowercase s because this is not, well, this is kind of a dialogue tag, so it's not a complete sentence. So again, just formatting, dialogue formatting is a lot of work. Go in it, I say, you don't even know where it leads to, you're seriously gonna go? Yes, then I'm going with you. So I guess the main issue, if any, that I see with like, okay, my Siri just turned on. Anyway, so I think the main issue that I see with the rest of this, if any, would just kind of be the same thing, probably add more detail. Like when you're talking, it's kind of hard just to add in detail because, you know, you don't really think about these things as you're talking in real life. But again, just put yourself in the character's shoes. If probably Caitlin Walker is going to be surprised too, so instead of saying great, maybe she could say something like, wow, I can't believe it actually worked, or something like that, and just kind of describe what they see along with what they're saying. So I'm just going to leave that one as it is and go on to the last one. So this one is actually written by me like this morning because fun fact, not really. Last night I drank boba and I cannot go to sleep because caffeine makes my brain not go to sleep. So I thought I would write another short story just so I can use it as an example for today's class because we're just doing editing. So this is the one I came up with. Like, this has not been edited before. I wrote this in literally 10 minutes, so there's probably going to be a lot of grammatical errors, which is great. We're all editors here, so we're just going to read through it. All right, so it says, I hate birthdays, especially the awkward ones, where everybody is clearly forced to be there to watch you make wishes and blow a few candles to celebrate your existence. Unfortunately, today just so happens to be mine, which means a replay of the same scene that happens every year on March 6th. Pulling up my mental checklist, I glance to my left where my older brother Hunter slouches in his seat. His brows are drawn together in a permanent scowl, a constant reminder that he clearly does not want to be here. Distant brother, check. Directly across from me, my little sister Katie sits in a wheelchair, her dreamy eyes drifting between my parents who surround her. Like always, her appearance is immaculate. A baby blue frilly dress with matching white socks, a large bow in her blonde curls to match her large blue eyes, and of course a fixed lopsided smile that pulls half her face upwards. Our doll-like sister, check. Alright, so this is not my complete first chapter. I actually have like the entire doc up there right now. But this is like the first 3 paragraphs of the first chapter. So that's why it is kind of weird because you don't really know what's going on as much, but it's okay. We're just gonna go through it without any context because honestly, I did not know what I was writing either. Alright, so does anybody have any initial comments on this piece of writing?
Not really. But my birthday's March 1st, so it's really close.
Oh, that's interesting. I just picked a random date, so that's pretty cool that it's pretty close. Yeah, my birthday's July 6th, so I guess that's a couple of months after. All right, so I don't think I got any chats from anybody either. So I guess, yeah, this one is kind of hard to edit just to go through because, like, no context. And honestly, for me, it's hard to edit my own writing because I'm the one who wrote it, so it's hard to see it with fresh eyes. But one thing I did notice when I was reading through it is this sentence. His brows are drawn together in a permanent scowl, a constant reminder that he clearly does not want to be here. So, like, this isn't something that I noticed the first time I wrote it. I had to like read through it, which is kind of what I just did. But when it says his brows are together in a permanent scowl, I would say that sentence may be kind of confusing because in most cases your brows won't scowl, I guess. So okay, how would I change that? His brows are drawn together to give a swirly look that matches his permanent scowl. Okay, that makes a lot more sense because brows can't scowl. All right, a constant reminder that he really doesn't want to be here. All right, so okay, wow, we're like spent a lot of time on this. So I'm actually not going to edit this anymore. I'll probably go through and edit it tonight just because I did not know what I was doing when I was writing it this morning. But hopefully this activity kind of gave you insight about how it is to edit. I know I probably should have put less examples because we don't have much time left. But anyways, hopefully that helped and you can kind of use the same process, same 6 tips or guidance levels to kind of guide you through when you actually edit your own writing. All right, so going on to the actual lesson. Wow, we spent so long on that. How to end your short story, because yesterday we talked about beginnings, so of course now we talk about endings. All right, so tip number 1 is to know your destination. So there are basically 2 types of books out there. The first one is standalone, which is just one book, there's no continuation, and then a series, which you guys should pretty much all know. It's just a book series that has multiple books around the same-ish topic or world. So in standalone books, this is definitely the end, unless you're writing a sequel, which in turn would be a series. This is the end of the book, and readers won't have anything else to kind of guide them through the rest of the story. So in the case that you are writing a standalone, make sure that everything is wrapped up, tie up all the loose ends, and definitely, well, I won't say like definitely 100% don't do it, but in most cases, don't leave any cliffhangers because that pretty much tells the readers that I don't really know how to end this, so I'm just going to end it with a cliffhanger. So usually cliffhangers are used in series or whatever, just to kind of guide the readers through and kind of convince them to keep on reading. But in most cases, in standalones, just don't end on a cliffhanger and make sure everything is tied up. On the other hand, if you are writing a series, which is super cool, your series probably still needs a resolution. Your first book shouldn't clarify or solve the main conflict, or else obviously there won't be a series. So another thing you can do in the ending is to introduce some new problems while resolving the current conflict. And again, this is kind of just to convince your readers to keep on reading. All right, tip number 2 or step number 2 is to look to your beginning. So if you're having trouble doing character arcs or character changes or just developing characters in general, definitely look towards your beginning and see how they change throughout the course of the story. So I think a couple days ago, I already forgot what exact day we talked about this, but we definitely did talk about dynamic versus static characters and what the difference is between them. So again, just see where your character started. If they are a dynamic character, then obviously they should change. So see how they change throughout the conflict, because conflict changes people. That's the whole point of the story. And then just develop them throughout the conflict, and you can end them in the last chapter. All right, step or tip, this is technically a tip. Tip number 3 is to pace yourself. So I should have taken my own advice when I first wrote Diary of the Gold Rush, because if you actually read through it, beginning to end, you'll see the beginning kind of takes forever, the middle is weird, and the ending is super, super rushed. So obviously this is something that I'm still working on right now, because I tend to not plot that much before I actually write, which is not the greatest habit, but anyways. So when I'm writing, most of my books or most of my stories seem to be really stretched out in the beginning and kind of clustered together in the end, which is also the case that I see in many other writers who don't plot. So I would just say definitely pace yourself through the entire story. Don't put all your effort into making the perfect first chapter and just throw at the end in the middle of nowhere, which is kind of what I did with my first book. But this is kind of just to avoid burnout, and it definitely does help with the flow of your story. And of course, fully explain the resolution to the conflict. Don't leave your readers asking that's it, because that's not the greatest endings. And of course, don't settle for convenience. Don't just throw at the end in a book just because your mom wants you to end it, because I know my mom definitely wanted me to end it, so I just wrote the end, and that was not the greatest idea. All right, so now what? So now we're going to recap the short story versus a novel thing that we kind of talked about yesterday, and kind of just go over the differences between them, because that kind of leads to the next thing we're going to talk about. So just to review, short stories tend to be 1 to 10 pages in length. They also usually cover one small conflict. They have less characters and requires less time and dedication. I think the general timeline I gave for this was 2 weeks. Long stories are obviously long. I mean, that's kind of the name. And they also usually focus on one main conflict with many subplots involved within that main conflict. These also take a lot of time and dedication, as you can probably imagine, and they definitely are the way to go if you want to write a series, because in most cases, series are long stories. All right, so this is a question that I often get asked. How do I know if I'm ready to start a novel?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
You said 10 pages. What is one page? 50 pages? 50 words? Or is it?
All right, so
it says 1 to 10 pages.
All right, so this is just
How
the
many
general
words?
guideline that I gave, just depending on my experience. So in pages, I'm thinking of just Google Docs. If you're writing in small-ish font, which I think most of you guys are writing in, usually my stories tend to be 1 to 10 pages on a Google Doc, although, that can obviously change from person to person, if that makes sense. All right, so going back to our topic, how do I know if I'm ready to start a novel? So before you say, okay, I'm so ready, I love writing and I'm gonna write and publish a book, just remember that not everybody is fit to write a novel. There are definitely some things that you should definitely do or be before you start writing, and this is because although writing a novel is super cool, you get a lot of excitement from it, it can be really stressful if you're not ready and you decide that you're just going to do it just because it's cool. So here are just some guidelines or characteristics of a person or a student who is ready to start a novel, or some scenes that the short story contains that kind of clues into it being turned into a novel. So the first one is dedicated to plot and characters, which I'm sure all of you guys are. You should definitely be dedicated to your plot, or else you're going to get bored, because I've seen so many writers get bored of their own books. The second one is to have multiple scenes going on throughout the book. So these are technically known as subplots, which we kind of went through before. And then the next one is kind of what I just covered. If you want to write a book series, you should definitely try to write a novel. All right, so now you made your decision, you want to do it. Now what should I do? So here are some tips for turning your short story into a novel. So step 0, for some reason when I made this PowerPoint, I decided to start from 0. Step 0 is to just make your words count. So how to increase that word count, because ultimately the difference between a short story and a long story is that a short story is short and a long story is long. But this is a common trap. Some beginning writers seem to think that more words equals a better story equals a great writer, which is technically not true if you like think about it. Yeah, it's really cool being able to hold up a really thick book and say, I wrote all of this, but if your reader that you're just bragging to just flips through it and is like, most of the stuff is just fluff, it's not great, it's unnecessary, then it's probably not going to reflect that well on your skill as a writer in general. So just always value quality over quantity. Definitely delete that fluff, which I just kind of mentioned. Fluff is known as scenes that don't add anything to the book. I put an example here. Yep, villain taking over a city. So let's say my main conflict is that this villain wants to take over a city. Some fluff in between would probably be like the villain's car breaking down on his way to Walmart in the morning when he wants to grab a coffee. So you probably don't have to describe how he has to stop and take 5 minutes to fix his car if the main conflict is taking over a city. So those things like fluff, unnecessary scenes, unnecessary words and characters, they're just kind of there to count, well, kind of upper that word count. But again, always value quality over quantity. If something doesn't make sense, then just take it out. All right, step 1, develop your characters. So I kind of talked about character development before, but I'll just go through it again since it's in the slideshow. So this is kind of my recipe of how to come up with the great characters. So the first one is just to make them relatable. Of course, people want to, well, you definitely want to evoke empathy. The easiest way to do that is make them relatable. So how do I do this? Well, you can definitely give them realistic motives. That's probably the best way. And something that I also added, create nervous tics or kind of just flaws or character flaws. So you could also see or say if they have any distinguishable features. I can't talk today. So for example, do they have a scar? I know, Harry Potter's famous for having a scar on his face. Do they have freckles? Do they have, like, I don't know, did they shave their eyebrow off? Do they have a nose piercing? Do they have like anything that really makes them stand out from other characters? So these are just kind of things that you can think about while developing characters. And while doing that, you can definitely like upper your word count and turn your short story into a novel. So big question here, how am I supposed to remember all of that? So I kind of introduced this in day 1 as well. These are character profiles, basically just a profile, for your characters. So I think I showed the exact same example actually, but you have a picture, you have some physical descriptions, personality, you have data such as like their birthday, their relationships, parents, friends, siblings, education, and all of that stuff. Character profiles are optional, but at least for me, I love making them because 1, they definitely help me develop my characters, and 2, it definitely helps it keep organized. So you can reference my example that I did. If your main character's eyes are brown in chapter 1, you probably don't want them to turn green in chapter 3 because that is a giant plot hole, which you should probably avoid. All right, step 2 is just to develop more subplots. So subplots, if you basically forgot what they are, they're basically mini plots that kind of get tied or intertwined into your main conflict. So a big question also here, how on earth do I develop these subplots? I can't think of anything. So there's honestly no great answer to this. I would just say just creativity. Like I'm sure you can think of some kind of subplot. I know common ones are romance, love triangles. I'm sure you guys have heard of those. Maybe a second conflict. Maybe you want to add a traitor to the mix. So all of those kind of things would definitely be counted as subplots, and these will definitely drastically lengthen your novel. All right, step 3 is to do more showing instead of telling. I'm not going to talk too much about this one since we did a whole pretty much half a day we spent half a day just trying to explain this and do practice with this. But here's just an example. On the left, we have telling, I went for a walk, it was beautiful. And if you actually want to use imagery to describe this walk, here is my example on the right. So as you can see, this is a paragraph. This is like 2 sentences. So if you do this for every single scene where you are telling instead of showing, it obviously will make your book a lot longer. All right, so now I initially planned a Kahoot. I think we have 10 minutes left. So I kind of marked it as optional because I don't know if you guys want to play it or, well, we kind of like still have a bit of time. But I guess, do you guys want to vote? Does anyone want to play it? Does anyone not?
I'm okay with playing it. Like, I'm okay if we play or we don't play it.
All right, so we have one person neutral in the middle. Does anyone
Same
else?
here.
Yeah, same
Same
here.
I'm also neutral.
People are saying I'm fine also. All right, wow, you guys are making me choose. You know what, hold on. I'm going to ask Siri to flip a coin because that will definitely be interesting. All right, so if it's heads, then it will be we play. If it's tails, then it means that I'll send you guys the link through the email and you can kind of play on your own. Let me mute for just a second. All right, so I got tails. Here is my screen. You guys probably can't see it, but it says tails. So yeah, we basically have 10 minutes, which I kind of had 20 questions, so we would probably go way over time. So what I'll do is I'll send the link to that Kahoot in the email that I'll send to you guys and your parents right after the class. So if you guys want, you can go through it and play the Kahoot. I mean, it probably, I don't even know if that's possible, but at least you can look through the questions and see what I had initially planned for the Kahoot. But just because I don't want to take too much time on it, and I'm pretty sure you guys are pretty tired. I mean, the week's almost over, but anyways. So I'm just going to go on to the next few slides so we can end a bit early. So this is kind of my ending slide, but surprise, there's actually a few more slides after that where I kind of describe what to do next. But wait, there's more, obviously. So apart from the Writers Workshop, I also teach more classes, which I kind of briefly mentioned yesterday. So if you enjoy learning about creative writing from this class and want to try writing and publishing your very own book, which is super cool, be sure to sign up for my planning and plotting class. I call it PMP, or the Road to Publication class, where people or students actually get to publish their own books. So I'm just going to go through each of these classes real quick so you guys know what each one is for. So for planning and plotting, this is kind of the prequel to the Road to Publication class. And in this class, we'll kind of just dive deep into how to outline and plan a successful novel. So of course, in this class, we just talked about plot hills, but in reality, there are so many more outlining methods. I was actually putting the slides together for this class earlier today, and I was like, oh my goodness, there are just so many things you have to get through. So there's so much is packed into this class, but you'll definitely learn a lot about how to plan and outline a great novel. And this is also, well, both classes are centered towards outlining a long story. So I would say if you're mostly focused on short stories, this class may not be the right fit for you yet. But if you want to take the dive and kind of have all the characteristics that we just went through, then you can definitely try taking these classes, and they will definitely help you with developing and writing a novel or a long story. And here are just some topics that will be covered: world building 101. So if you want to learn how to create a magic system for your fantasy novel, if you want to learn about how to develop a setting and etc., these kind of stuff will all be kind of covered in this course. Also character creation, I'll give some tips. Whoops. I don't know how that happened, but character creation, if you guys want to create characters, if you want to know how to make them relatable, how to kind of describe their appearance, that's all kind of packed into this one as well. And of course, lots of outlining methods. So the Road to Publication is definitely the highlight of all my classes. This is the most advanced one that I offer currently, and also the most unique. I'm pretty sure that you probably can't find a class like this like anywhere else, and this is mainly just because I published a book when I was in 5th grade, and I just published again Nightingale, so I've been through the process 2 times, so I feel like I can definitely provide some guidance on how to actually publish, since I know a lot of people don't even know that you can publish before you turn like 18. So again, this is the most advanced one, but also the most unique, so that's super cool. The end goal of this class is to have you guys, as the students, publish a book at the end of 10 weeks, which is the length of the class. So here are just some things that will be covered: writing, obviously, because you're writing your book, editing and formatting, which we kind of covered today, at least in editing. We'll also talk about book covers, which are honestly, I think for my students from when I last taught this class, they loved book covers because they got to design their own cover, they got to draw, they got to like decide what font they want to use to make super cool covers. So that will all be covered here. And also, of course, publishing and fun fact, well, not really that interesting or fact, but you can also make money off of these books. I know when I was publishing it, I did not expect to make any money at all. But if you do advertising well, all your family and friends buy it, then you can actually earn some money, which is pretty cool. So also this note here, the PMP class, planning and plotting, must be taken before this class. And this is just because this class just dives straight into writing. So if you don't have a solid story idea before, it can be kind of confusing, and 10 weeks may not be long enough to actually develop and write and publish and format and design a book cover for. entire book. So the story you write, in this class, will be based off of the one that you've already brainstormed and outlined in the PMP class. But if you don't want to publish and you just want to learn how to outline, then you can just take the PMP class and you don't have to take this class. So you guys already kind of saw a sneak peek of this one, but these are some books that were published by previous students. I taught this class one time before. I think I started it in like April and it went to like summer-ish, but there was about 8-ish students in this class and 3 finished within the 10-week time period. I think the main reason why the other few didn't finish, they're kind of still working on it. I'm guessing the main reason why they didn't finish is because PMP was not a thing back then. So they were kind of having trouble actually developing a story idea and writing it and, finishing it within 10 weeks. But these were just 3 of the books that were published by some of the students. In fact, I think Stella left. But she actually wrote this middle one. So she was actually here earlier. So that's super cool. We have this one on the left. This is called The Snow Dragon. It was written by a girl named Nicole. See this super cool book cover that we had lots of fun designing. And then, of course, The Ice Ring, written by Stella. And on the right, we have Maya, who wrote a fantasy novel of the New Council, which is actually kind of similar to one that you guys are writing with her, with the character falling through a portal and trying to make her way back home. So that's pretty interesting. If you want to learn more about these books and actually buy them, you can totally buy them through my website, or you can just Google them on Amazon or pretty much anywhere. You should be able to find them. So, of course, how do I register? All registration /website/book purchase links for all of my books, plus the books of the students, can be found on my link tree. Here's a link. You know what? I'm just going to type it into the chat because you probably can't click it from the PowerPoint, obviously. So here you go. You can just click that and you can definitely show it to your parents if you want to register. Or if you can't remember that, you can find them on my website. Here's my website, pretty easy to remember, but that's also linked on my link tree as well. So just bookmark that and it should be all set. So other than that, that should be it. I think, this is the end slide. I actually don't have more slides hiding. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the writer's workshop. I know it's just really quick with really brief introductory to creative writing. There's so much more to discover in the world of creative writing, which is kind of why I offer so many more classes. But hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed creative writing. Hopefully you guys learned a lot, had a lot of fun. So I guess that's basically it. I am very bad at ending meetings and classes. So of course, don't forget to register if you want. Here's the link. I think the first class of PMP starts actually this Saturday, so that's pretty cool. And actually in that class, you'll get to meet some of the authors who wrote these. Okay, my computer's not working. You'll get to meet some of the authors who wrote the books that I showed in the previous slide, so that's pretty cool. But other than that, I'll be sending one last recap email to you guys and your parents, just with links to surveys if you want to fill it out, and also the Kahoot link and just a recap recording of this video plus the slides, as I always do. But other than that, if you have any questions, you can feel free to ask them now. You can send me an email. I'll probably be going through your guys' stories, as I kind of mentioned, and just kind of giving feedback, because I promised your parents I'd do that. But other than that, if you guys don't have any questions, I will see you when I see you, which will hopefully be soon.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the story we're writing, well, we obviously haven't finished it yet. So like you said you're gonna check them or something?
Yeah, so the story that you're writing right now, technically, based on the homework schedule that I had planned, you should have started writing the first chapter at least, right? So you have at least something. Yeah, so probably I'll be going through what you have already and just kind of giving guidance and feedback on the plot and just some sentences similar to what we just did today.
Okay.
All right, cool. Does anyone else have any questions or comments or anything? All right, it appears not. So anyways, like I mentioned, I'm very bad at ending meetings and classes, especially since it's the last class, but I really enjoyed working with guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this class as well. And feel free to reach out anytime. You can basically email me. I'm always active. If you don't have my email, you can ask your parents. I'm pretty much spamming them with emails all the time. But other than that, if you want to sign up, definitely do that. And I will see you in those classes. Otherwise, have a great day, have a great evening. It appears that most of you guys have, or basically nighttime. Well, for me, it's like almost nighttime. But yeah, have a great day, have a great night, and Happy New Year. Yeah, for me, yeah, New Year's is tomorrow, which is pretty cool.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year's Eve. Bye.
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 Bye, guys.